What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason, and in today's video, I wanted to take a closer look at this weekend's East semifinal between the Hamilton Tigercats and the Montreal Alouettes. Take a look by the numbers and look at who has the edge in this matchup. And of course, if you guys want to know my official prediction for this game as well as the West semifinal, be sure to go check out my playoff predictions video that I released yesterday. But with that said, let's get started. So this won't be that long of a video, but I wanted to take a look at this matchup more in detail. So these two teams have met 3 times this season. Montreal has won all 3 matchups. The first matchup was in week 3 of this season. They win 38-12 at Hamilton. This is a game that Matthew Shiltz started for Hamilton. And the story of this game was really that Montreal put the ball in the end zone and Hamilton settled for field goals. Hamilton did not get in the end zone in this matchup, and ultimately this game really turned at the end of the first quarter where there was a big punt return touchdown by Chandler Worthy for the Alouettes, and that really swung momentum in Montreal's favor. And that's one thing about the Alouettes this season. They've had, I believe, 12 non-offensive touchdowns this year. So special teams or defense really contributing to the scoring for the Alouettes this year. And then the second matchup was week 9, again at Tim Hortons Field, where Montreal won 27-14. This one was a little bit closer right up until the fourth quarter. I believe it was a 1-score game, but ultimately Montreal pulled away at the end, and Hamilton really couldn't move the ball very well on that Alouettes defense, this time with Taylor Powell under center. And then the final meeting between these two teams this season came this past week, where both the Alouettes and Ticats both rested a lot of their starters, so don't know how much you could take from this game, but Montreal won the game 22-20 at home. So ultimately, Montreal sweeps the season series this year, but let's take a look at the quarterback matchup. So Bo Levi Mitchell is supposedly going to be the starter for the Ticats this week, but they're going to be using both him and Matthew Shiltz, they have announced. So very much interested to see how much they use one quarterback or the other. I think if Bo gets off to a good start, they're going to ride the hot hand. But Bo, when you look at the numbers this year, it hasn't been all too impressive. 6 games played, 1,031 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and only completing 59% of his throws. So not the most pretty numbers in the world. Of course, 5 of those 10 interceptions came in that one game against Ottawa when he tried to make a comeback earlier this season. So ultimately, Bo Levi Mitchell, he has looked better since he's gotten back in the lineup the past couple of weeks, but it's still very much an unknown going into this matchup. And then for Cody Fajardo for the Alouettes, 16 games played, 3,847 passing yards, 14 touchdowns versus 12 interceptions for 71% completion percentage. Very efficient season for Cody Fajardo, but not a ton of touchdowns, not a lot of big plays generated, but I think he has done a really good job of steering the ship for the Alouettes with a great defense behind him, good running game, some good supporting receivers, but ultimately the questions are still out there about how he's going to perform come playoff time. Say if the Ticats have a breakthrough against this Alouettes defense, can the Alouettes offense really put up the points necessary to keep up in a shootout type game? So very much looking forward to the quarterback matchup this weekend. Now let's take a look at the team stats. So I just went with the basic team stats like I've done for many videos this season. Points for, points against, passing offense, rush offense, passing defense, and rush defense. So in terms of points for, the Alouettes have the edge here, 24.6 points per game, which is 4th in the CFL this season, whereas Hamilton averages 22.7 points per game, which is 7th in the CFL this season. But when you look at the numbers there, it's only about a 2-point gap there, so not too much of an advantage in favor of the Alouettes there, but they do have an edge. Now, in terms of points against, I think this is where the Alouettes have a much bigger edge. They only allow 21.8 points per game this season, which is 2nd in the CFL, only to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I do believe. And then for Hamilton, they allow 25.6 points per game, which is 5th in the CFL this season. So Hamilton's defense has been a lot better the second half of the season, but ultimately still pretty much an average unit by league standards. Now, in terms of passing offense, this is one category that favors Hamilton. 256.8 yards per game passing, which is 5th in the CFL, whereas Montreal has 228.7 yards per game passing, which is 6th in the CFL. So ultimately, a pretty big gap in terms of yardage there, about 30 yards per game more for the Ticats on average through the air. So maybe they have an advantage there, but Like I said, the Alouettes defense very stingy in terms of allowing points. So I'm excited to see how the Ticats offense does against that Alouettes defense this weekend. Now, in terms of rushing offense, the Alouettes have the edge there, 103.4 yards per game on the ground, which is 5th in the CFL. And then for Hamilton, it's 96.7, which is 7th in the CFL. Despite bringing in James Butler, the Ticats still didn't finish where you'd want in terms of the rushing, in terms of the rest of the CFL this season. I think that James Butler obviously had an excellent season, but there hasn't been much contributions to the ground game besides him. And I think the running game has kind of slowed down throughout the last handful of games of the season. So interested to see if they can get James Butler going in this matchup. And then for the other side, can Williams stand back and Jeshurun Antwi, whatever running backs they have, Walter Fletcher might be involved as well. So I'm interested to see how the Alouettes do on the other side of the ball as well. So interested to see how the offenses perform in this one. Now, in terms of the defense, in terms of passing defense, the Alouettes have the edge there. 223.5 yards allowed per game through the air, which is 2nd in the CFL, whereas Hamilton is 6th in the CFL, allowing 246.6 yards per game through the air. Hamilton's secondary has been a weakness through most of this season, so I'm interested to see how they play in this playoff matchup. Montreal, not the most explosive offense, but they have shown the ability to take advantage of the opportunities when you give them. And I'm really excited to see how they play in this matchup and how that secondary plays for Hamilton. And then finally, in terms of rushing defense, the Alouettes have the edge there. 110.4 yards allowed per game on the ground, which is 5th in the CFL. And then Hamilton's is slightly worse, 112 yards allowed on the ground this year, which is 6th in the CFL. So ultimately, the Alouettes have the edge in 5 of those 6 categories that I mentioned. But like I said, these are just basic stats. There's more you can look into. Third down percentage, or sorry, second down percentage, I should say. My NFL brain is talking there. But I think at the end of the day, the Alouettes, when you look at the statistics, they generally have the edge in this matchup. And in terms of the season series, obviously they won every game this season. But in a one-game playoff scenario, you never know what can happen. Now, in terms of the key matchups I'm watching for in this game, I've highlighted 3 here. I think the Hamilton offensive line versus the Alouettes front 7. I think it's going to be very key for Hamilton to protect the quarterback in this game, especially if Bo Levi Mitchell plays the majority of this game. He's basically a pocket passer at this point of his career. Never was a guy that had too much mobility to his game, but he is even less mobile now in his older age. So I'm interested to see if the Ticats offensive line can protect against a very good Montreal Alouettes front 7 on defense. And then the second matchup I'm looking for is on the other side of the ball with Cody Fajardo versus Hamilton safety Stavros Kassatonis, who's been a ball hawk so far this year. I think that if he can get a couple of takeaways against Cody Fajardo, or if the Ticats defense get a couple of takeaways against Cody Fajardo in this one, it would go a long way for the Ticats to get a victory on Saturday. And then the final thing I want to highlight here is the kick return / punt return game. I think that there's going to be a big special teams play in this one, whether it be a blocked kick or a punt return. So I think it's going to be very key for the special teams to play a big role in this one. Both teams have very good return men, good punters, really good special teams coverage units. So I'm excited to see how this matchup plays out on Saturday. But with that said, that is going to be the end of this quick game preview for Saturday's game in the East semifinal between the Hamilton Tigercats and the Montreal Alouettes. And with that said, hope you guys enjoy the game this weekend. Be sure to let me know who you think wins in the comments section. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.